I guess when it doesn't work out, you break up with somebody, your girlfriend doesn't want to be with you, and then you say, well, I don't want to be with you either. I'm not going to get into all that.
George Costanza's preemptive breakup has nothing on the NFL as Mike Vrabel and the Patriots continue to tweak their roster after whittling it down to 53 players yesterday. Here's what went down today. They released Kendrick Bourne, with friend of the show Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald reporting the veteran wideout actually requested to be let go after being asked to take a pay cut, and then a potential trade to the Vikings fell through. Patriots will also have released Javon Baker. Mike Reese says, though, that they expect him back on the practice squad if he clears waivers. And those two moves came because the Pats were awarded 2 waiver claims: defensive back Charles Woods and quarterback Tommy DeVito. All right, welcome into Arbella Early Edition as we get ready to deep dive this Patriots roster. Trenni Casey here with you in studio alongside Meghan Ottolini from WEEI. Down in Foxborough, we have our Patriots insider Tommy Curran, and from Boston Sports Journal, we have Mike Giardi. All right, let's start with the wider receivers, Curran. They're now down to 6. Do you feel any better about this wide receiver room and what they have in those 6?
No, basically feel the same. I think Kendrick Bourne was a useful player if they deemed him so, but I wouldn't have batted an eye had they released him or moved on or traded him yesterday. And the release today doesn't cause me to bat an eye. The 6 that they're going to have, I think Kendrick Bourne would have been probably, I would have preferred him over Kyle Williams at this juncture, but in a year or two, God willing, you'd prefer to see Kyle Williams, I think. So, and Javon Baker is now a special teamer. Whether he can work his way back, if he does go to the practice squad, to having some position relevance, we'll see.
Yeah, very interesting to me, the Bourne thing, just the timing of it, which, talking about possibly trading him, you would think you just want to get that done before the cutdown day so you didn't have to go through this rigmarole. I don't necessarily believe Bourne's side of the story about we asked for our release. I think Mike was sort of telling you the truth. Like, we were going to part ways with you one way or the other, and it just so happened that we couldn't trade you, and now we're going to do that thing. Did ask him to take a pay cut, too, which maybe would have saved him. But the thing about Bourne is, like, when was the last time he was really good? It was 2021, right?
He was good at the beginning portion of 2023, and then he blew his ACL.
And that was that, right? So, also a player that, even though he was a veteran, Trenni, was someone that would screw up mentally a lot. Line up in the wrong place, run the wrong route. And yes, afterwards he would tell us, I screwed that up. That was my fault, which you appreciate. But then you're also 29, 30 in the offense for a little while. You should know these things.
Mike, I do wonder why they went about it this way. In the leak that happened yesterday of the roster that came out, Kendrick Bourne wasn't on that initial roster. I mean, I guess if you knew you weren't going to keep him, why keep him in the first place? But then I also think, I feel like they had such a hard time filling out a roster that they had to have bodies there.
Yeah, I think it's the second thing, Trenni. And in terms of Kendrick Bourne, I think Mike makes a great point there that he's somebody who did have a lot of mental gaffes, even when he was healthy in the early part of training camp. I talked to Pop Douglas today at his locker and asked him about Kendrick Bourne, and he's clearly a guy who was very well liked. Like, that was never the issue unless you were Matt Patricia as the offensive coordinator, but it just ultimately didn't have a fit. And with Javon Baker, I think that they felt confident that in releasing him today, that they were going to be able to have him clear waivers, bring him back to be a special teamer, and that's how it worked out. They were able to release these 2 guys, not a huge loss, and bring on who was going to be available today, which they ended up executing.
Yeah, Mikey, I don't think that it stunk in the wide receiver room, although maybe you would argue. But I am curious, based on the talent that they have right now on the roster, who are your active wide receivers on game day?
I think it's Diggs. I think it's Hollins. I think it's Booty. I think it's Douglas. And then, I don't know, it depends on which week and who you feel like. Is Williams ready? Do we want that someone to stretch the field? Or do we feel like maybe we need a little insurance for Pop and have Efton Chisholm active in the slot? It's a better room than it's been in a few years, which, again, not saying much. But I do think, Tom, that there is an opportunity to, can they get the league average with that group? Is that possible? Especially if Diggs is 85, 90% of what he was.
Yeah, if you go glass half full, they have a nice complement of players. not anybody who's going to probably be a Pro Bowler unless Stephon Diggs rolls the clock back a little bit. But to me, you have a nice complement of skills. Hollins is a huge individual. Obviously, Douglas is the kind of water bug that the Patriots best utilize when Josh McDaniels is the offensive coordinator. So those are two complementaries to Booty, who I think is a very short-handed and dependable guy generally, and I think that Diggs could be good. So, yeah, nobody's sitting around going, man, I wish we had the wide receiver room the Patriots do, but they're not looking at it and going, they can't play at all.
Meg, is there a guy that you would like to see have an opportunity to do something on Sundays from that wide receiver room who might be on the edge? We know the guys that are absolutely going to be out there, but is there someone where you're like, you know what, he may be worth a game day spot?
On the edge in terms of who's on the six-man right now?
Yeah, who's on the six wide receivers?
And depth chart. I obviously have to say Efton Chisholm. I mean, how are you not in love with this kid's story? And even when you hear about his work ethic, he was talking about today, what he was doing in the treatment room, that Drake May comes into the treatment room every time and is like, dude, what are you doing here? Your first team all treatment room. You're here all the time, because he's that desperate to get back on the field that he says he's in there 2 to 3 times a day over a minor injury that he suffers in a second preseason game. Look, some of this stuff we overblow because we've seen Amendola and Edelman come through that same way. But if Efton Chisholm could find a way to contribute on special teams in addition to maybe moving up that wide receiver depth chart, that could go hand in hand and make for a very nice story over the next couple seasons.
All right. Well, Tommy DeVito certainly made an impression, everybody, on the Patriots when he torched them in last week's preseason finale. Before he got claimed by New England today, he joins Drake May and Joshua Dobbs in the Patriots quarterback room. Mike Vrabel was asked if bringing DeVito to Foxborough has anything to do with how the team feels about Dobbs' performance this summer.
Josh has has settled down in the games. And I think that there's been some mistakes, whether that was joint practice or practice, and we're all going to have mistakes. And then being able to, settle down in the games and perform and operate. And again, each move that we'll make may not be an indication of what the players are at that position. I think it's just looking to strengthen the overall roster construction.
Mego, do you really think that Tommy DeVito could push Josh Dobbs? I mean, it's sort of like 6 one way, half dozen the other. But is it possible that he might be a better option if something would happen to Drake May?
I think it's possible. I do think that they're a little bit more similar in level of backup quarterback. I think with Josh Dobbs, you're having somebody who acts as a little bit more of a bench coach for Drake May, whereas with Tommy DeVito, he's so early in his experience that he might still think that he has, a chance at being a starting quarterback here. Things go sideways for Drake May. That would not be a good situation for your quarterback room, but I'm just a little bit more excited to have DeVito in there than Dobbs. I don't think that if that means either way, I think that if Drake May gets injured and he misses a couple games this season, your offense is pretty cooked.
Mike Giardi, you had an article today on Boston Sports Journal about the cuts and the moves and prior to everything kind of coming through. And I know that you would have preferred them to take an offensive lineman or a fullback. Do you think either of the players that they acquired were the right ones and can help this team?
No, I don't. I mean, look, in Woods' case, the kid they got from the Rams, he's a gunner. He's a jammer on the special teams. That's what Javon Baker was doing. So I think they're going to take a look at him, see if he can do it better than Javon was doing it. And then if, as you mentioned, if Javon clears and ends up on the practice squad, hope that he can still develop as a wide receiver. When it comes to DeVito, I think Mego said it right, Tom. If he has to play, okay, just like Josh Dobbs, if it's a game, you can probably get by. You can figure out a way to do things. But if it's more than a game, you're screwed.
Yeah, and I think that you want to be able to have, over the course of time, a reliable backup quarterback. This is Josh Dobbs' first time here. He's a journeyman. He's been with a million teams. He might be with a million more. You don't know if he's going to be here for the long term, but it's nice when there's a stable backup year in and year out, a Hoyer type, a Garoppolo type during the early portion of his career. Those kinds of players are valuable to have. So if Dobbs ends up lighting out for a new destination, does Tommy DeVito then look at himself as, okay, I'm a backup now? If he hasn't already, he might want to. But I'm a backup now, and I'll stay here in New England as a happy backup for a while. So to me, we're talking about positions number 45 to 53 on the roster here. So it's not seismic stuff, but it is intriguing. I would have liked them, if we do want to say where should they have gone, Pharaoh Brown. He's a big blocking tight end. He dumped into a 55-yard touchdown a couple years ago against the Jets, thrown by Mac Jones. He can catch the ball, and I think the Patriots are tight end needy right now.